So you want to get better at double tonguing. Maybe you're a complete beginner and have no idea where to even start. Or maybe you've been double tonguing for a while, but are looking for ways to open that sound up a little bit. This video is for you. But before we go on, consider subscribing to the Lakes Brass Quintet so you don't miss any tips and tricks like this. Let's get into the video. So what exactly is double tonguing? Well, if you've ever started on a brass instrument, you've probably been taught to tongue using the syllable ta. That ta syllable is what we refer to as our single tongue, using only the front part of our tongue. And if we try to speed that single tongue up, we reach a threshold where we simply can't articulate that quickly. Ta 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 ta, and you become tongue-tied. Not literally tongue-tied, that's something separate which I've mentioned in previous videos, but figuratively tongue-tied in the sense that you can't go any faster and your tongue loses control. So how do we tongue these fast passages on our brass instruments? We introduce the back of the tongue into our articulation, switching from a T attack to a K attack. Double tonguing is an articulation pattern in which we alternate between using the front of our tongue and the back of our tongue so that we get a pattern that sounds like taka, 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 taka. Now, learning how to double tongue can be really tricky since our tongues are not used to maintaining that pattern for long periods of time. So my first tip to you is, without your instrument, simply walk around town, walk around your school, quietly going taka 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 taka, allowing your tongue to learn that pattern. Once your tongue is used to going taka 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 taka, translating that to the instrument presents another challenge. Now, because double tonguing is meant to be fast, a lot of times we try to double tongue as fast as we can right out the gate. And that doesn't sound so good. Why? Because we've spent so much of our time developing our single tongue ta sound and basically no time developing our K sound. So before you take that digga 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 and throw it into your instrument, spend some time working on developing that K attack. An exercise that I like to do is a series of T attacks followed by K attacks, doing my best to make sure they sound the same. I'll start with 4 T attacks, followed by 4 K attacks, followed by 2 T attacks and 2 K attacks, and then the alternating T, K, T, K, which would be our double tongue. Off the instrument, it would sound like t, 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 k, 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 t, t, k, k, t, k, t, k. I feel like I'm beatboxing. But on the instrument, it should sound like this. You'll know you're doing it right if your T attack and your K attack start to sound the same. Now that you've been practicing walking around, training your tongue to do the dugga 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 pattern, and you've strengthened that K attack, it's time to start developing your speed. Now, the best place you can go to start learning to double tongue is in Arbin's Complete Conservatory Method. There is an entire section dedicated to double tonguing that is really worth your time. And here's an interesting little brass nerdy fact that I enjoy about the Arbin book that might flip some of your perspectives on double tonguing. In his method, Arbin uses the syllable tu, tu, and ku, ku, to double tongue. So to an American like myself, I would articulate tuku tuku. But when you consider that Arbin is actually French, that tu vowel becomes more of a tu vowel. That tu vowel incorporates a little bit of an e vowel to it, which is what helps us to access notes in the upper register. So as you ascend some of these scalar exercises, think about switching your vowel from tuku tuku tu to tuku tuku tu as you get higher. That's actually really close to an anchor tonguing position if I'm thinking about it. Tuku tuku tu. Tuku tuku tu. If you want to see a video on anchor tonguing, write out, "What is anchor tonguing?" in the comment section down below. It's important when doing these exercises to pick a tempo that you can perform well. For me, I try to have my upper threshold tempo of single tonguing be 16th notes at quarter note equals 120. Can I single tongue faster than that? Yes. But 16th notes at quarter note equals 120 is around where that gray area starts of should I do a fast single tongue or should I do a slower double tongue? A good speed that I use with my students is probably around quarter note equals 100. Taka-taka-ta, 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 taka-taka-ta. That might be a bit quick, but hey, my phone is my metronome and my camera, so we gotta make sacrifices somewhere. And if you start doing these exercises, you are double tonguing. But if you don't have an Arbin book, which you should go get one, here's an exercise you can do to develop your endurance when it comes to double tonguing. The pattern is simple. We will go up and down a scale, and for each pitch, we will use the rhythm da da ga da da ga da ga da ga da ga da ga. The exercise may seem simple at first, but the longer you progress through it, you might find that your tongue gets a little bit tired and kind of falls off the tracks. So be patient. Let your tongue develop that endurance, and before you know it, you'll be able to double tongue like a pro. Now that we're actually double tonguing, here are some things to keep in mind to make sure that we can get the best possible sound with our double tongue. It's very common for students who have just started double tonguing to get a very short, pecky sound when they're articulating. Something like taka-taka-ta, taka-taka-ta, or on the trumpet, and the reason is actually quite simple. When you're learning a new skill, oftentimes we forget to transfer everything else we've been doing. So when we're learning how to double tongue, it's very easy to forget that our sound doesn't start at our tongue, it starts with our air. Thus, if you're getting a short, pecky taka-taka-ta, just blow more air through that double tongue. An image that I like to think of when I'm double tonguing is a whistle like you'd see in gym class. Inside a whistle is a little wooden ball that bounces around as the air is blowing through it. Think about your tongue as being that wooden ball inside of that whistle. And as the air is coming through your oral cavity, your tongue is just going taka-taka-ta, taka-taka-ta. Now that analogy isn't exactly one-to-one what's happening physically, but just having that image in my mind makes my tongue less rigid and causes me to use a lot more air to support my sound, making my taka-taka-ta into more of a Now, the last little piece of double tonguing wisdom I want to leave you guys with is what to do when you have moving double tonguing. The examples so far in this video have been what we call repeated double tonguing, meaning that I do a pattern of TK or TK-TK on the same note without moving my valves. But what if I have to play a scalar passage where I'm changing notes between my T's and K's? You might be thinking to yourself, oh my gosh, I'll never be able to match my fingers and my tongue and my air and my chops. Here's a trick on how to simplify it from one of my favorite method books, Jake's Method. When it comes to syncing up your fingers and your tongue for a moving double tonguing passage, think about either your fingers or your tongue, not both at the same time. If you think about both, in the words of Don Jake Jacoby, you are going to wind up in a train wreck. For me, having been double tonguing for a really long time, I feel really strongly that I can set my tongue to autopilot, so I shift my focus from syncing my fingers and my tongue and just think about getting the fingers down in time. Here's an example of some moving double tonguing from a piece that we're going to be dropping later this month. If you know the piece, let us know in the comments. And thus ends the Complete Idiot's Guide to Double Tonguing. If you found this video helpful, be sure to drop a like and subscribe so you don't miss the rest of our videos.